You're listening to the Spend 10K a Day podcast, brought to you by the performance marketing experts at Mute 6. This is your source for cutting-edge insight into the world of online advertising from the team with more Facebook case studies in 2016 than any other agency on the planet. Here are your hosts, Steve Wise and Stuart Anderson.
Welcome to today's episode of the Spend 10K a Day podcast. I am Stuart Anderson, and with me today is Steve Weiss. We're talking today about actually the topic that inspired the podcast, scaling your Facebook ad campaigns, ideally to the point where you're spending 10K a day or more. So, Steve, I know you have some specific points that you want to hit on as key things that people can do to help them scale up their campaigns. Talk to me a little bit about what those are and how we're going to kind of frame the discussion today.
So the question we always get is, I'm spending X right now, or say you're spending $2,000 a day right now, and you want to be able to keep your current CPA or your current return on ad spend, but at the same time spend more money to drive more acquisition. So that's the key to most performance marketers on Facebook. How do you keep your ROAS or CPA constant while also scaling your ad spend? And we have a methodology of doing this. We have a lot, there's 4 key things that I like to talk about when I talk about scaling Facebook ads. Number one is really understanding your data. So I like to look at the time of day that conversions are coming in. We'll talk about that more. Number 2, the structure of your campaigns, how you're structuring your tests. Your test campaigns where you always have ads and audiences on the on deck circle, and how you rotate those top audiences and ads into your current top ad sets. Number 3, making sure that you aren't overlapping your audiences. We kind of have an audience strategy that we discuss where, we try and make sure that to scale an audience that we're not overlapping. I'll go into our audience strategy. And the 4th one is leveraging Facebook Insights, which I think is really important. Leveraging Facebook Insights and taking that intelligence back to your current audiences that you're targeting.
Sounds great. So why don't we get started with that first one?
So the first one is very important. People buy your product most frequently, usually during a specific time of day. I think a lot of marketers aren't really looking at the time of day that users are purchasing their products. I know on Google you could do daytime partying. On Facebook you could do daytime partying, but I feel like a lot of brands and a lot of companies we work with aren't efficiently daytime partying, mainly because it's complicated, there's attribution issues. But when it comes to scaling, I like to scale my campaigns or scale my budgets around specific times a day where I know people are purchasing my products. AKA, if I really want to make a big scale across a couple ad sets that I know are profitable, I want to know at what time of day is consistently most people purchasing my product. Then I scale my ad sets around that time of day. It sounds like a very simplistic strategy, but a lot of people aren't leveraging just their own intelligence to actually scale campaigns.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Obviously, as you get more data, you want to, just as you would tailor an audience to be more specific around the types of people that are buying, you're going to want to tailor your campaigns around the times of day where people are making purchase decisions. Sometimes it might be at night, sometimes it might be in the morning. But if you figure out the behavior, tailor your campaigns that way so you're not wasting as many ad dollars on the times where people aren't buying. And then
with the new automated rules, you could actually scale up during specific times a day.
Yeah.
And then set up a rule where you actually will scale down to different spend levels based on CPA ratios on other times a day. So leveraging time of day plus automated rules is a really amazing recipe for success.
And it's one of those unique times as well, based on what we talked about in our Automated Rules podcast.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those unique scenarios where you actually can use an automated rule to optimize rather than just monitor a campaign.
Yep, exactly, because a lot of people don't have the time to really, be waking up at 2 in the morning to lower budgets. I know I used to wake up and have timers set up just to log into my ads manager and be like, okay, I gotta turn it down a little bit because I know that Facebook is going to be wasteful about my ad impressions. But now with automated rules, you can really, connect that to the way you scale campaigns.
Yeah, it gives you a lot more granular control over just kind of the standard daytime partying as we were talking about before.
Yep, and then number 2, let's talk about structure. I feel like a lot of people aren't leveraging, Facebook's flexibility to really, learn and test at rapid scale. So what I like to do is I always, I have my winter campaigns. I know or winter ad sets, should I say. I know I have, 10 or 11 winner ad sets. These ad sets have been, these audiences specifically have been driving conversions consistently across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So you're spending $2,000 or $3,000 a day. These audiences are your main drivers. But that there's going to be ad fatigue, right? That if you don't switch out your ads or you don't continuously iterate and become creative, that people are just getting tired of your ads, whether it's people commenting and saying, I keep seeing this on my newsfeed and get it away, or, that people really are going to get fatigued. So what I like to do is I always like to have one or two ad sets. I call that my on-deck circle. Kind of like we're playing baseball, where I always have ads on my on-deck circle, just literally testing specific ads on audiences that I'm not targeting. So I know my best audiences. I don't want to target on the on-deck circle audiences anything that's already working. So then what I do is once I have ads that are working on my on-deck circle, then I'll bring those ads into my killer ad audiences already. So I like having an on-deck circle for my ads, and that'll allow me to actually keep scaling my current campaigns by bringing in these ads that are already converting.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really like that. I mean, it really, really helps to be prepared, as you said, and have stuff like just waiting.
Yep.
Things constantly lined up so that you're always testing something. A really, really good point.
And it also allows you to test both the ads and the audiences in a place where you're not just conversion focused.
Mm-hmm.
You know that your goals for these on deck circles are you're testing engagement, you're testing CTR, you're testing reach for specific ads, you're testing time of day, you're playing around, you're testing conversion objectives. So now you can literally play around and not be so conversion focused at very small budgets. But then once you have winners in there, then you could take those winners and pop them into your best audiences already. And now your best audiences are seeing ads that are already working.
Fantastic.
So you're not burning out your best audiences.
Love that. So let's talk about the third item on your list.
Third item on your list is something very important, and I feel like a lot of Facebook marketers don't put a lot of stock in this, and that's audience overlap.
Yeah.
About a year now, Facebook came out with a tool that allows you to kind of measure the overlap between your audiences. So let's say you're targeting multiple lookalike audiences, lookalikes of customers, lookalikes of emails. Well, there's going to be overlap between ad sets. And what happens when there's overlap between ad sets, Facebook will target the same users in each ad set. And when you target the same users in each ad set, without you knowing, your conversion rate goes down.
Of course.
So you always want to and that's kind of one of the keys to scaling is making sure that you're not overlapping your audiences. So if you're running lookalikes 10% of your current customer list, you want to make sure there's no overlap between lookalikes 1% of your current WCA traffic. So I love looking continuously on a daily basis. People move between audiences a lot on Facebook, so I like to continuously use my audience overlap tool, especially when I'm trying to scale campaigns, to make sure that I'm not targeting the same users, because that actually kill my conversion rate as I try and scale up from 1,000 a day to say 2,000 or 3,000 a day. So
yeah.
I use that tool a lot. Audience overlap is very important. And to second that, I also really, really encourage everyone to not focus so much on using Facebook's audience pixels for targeting. I always like to say upload as much email data as possible, because that's going to be the constant. Remember, people aren't always logged in to Facebook when they check out. Most of the time they are, but sometimes they aren't. So you could be missing a lot of audience data if you're not keeping your emails refreshed.
Yeah, and so it goes back to actually something I tell a lot of people when they ask me about important things for audience targeting on Facebook, and I say, it's just as important what you include in an audience. It's just as important to be really, really tactical about what you exclude from an audience as what you include from an audience. They're very, very important. So what are some ways that people can kind of, prevent, shall we say, a lot of kind of audience overlap and audience creep when they're doing campaigns? Obviously, they don't want to be constantly checking. Is there a way that people can construct audiences that allows Facebook to do a lot of the work for them?
Proper exclusions. I think that if you're able to, properly exclude and be very diligent with how you exclude audiences. So if you're targeting a very high percentage lookalike, make sure you're excluding your lookalike ones and your lookalike make sure that I like to have a spreadsheet just, kind of mapping out, all my audiences that I'm targeting, just so I know, whenever I create a new ad set that I'm not overlapping manually when I create these ad sets.
Yeah.
So, remember when you target a high percentage lookalike, it's a much bigger audience. So there's a good possibility that when you target high percentage lookalikes that you're going to hit, not only your WCAs, but your emails and your other lower level lookalikes, but you're gonna hit all those people. So
yeah.
I really like to make sure that I'm very diligent with my targeting, making sure that I'm not overlapping between all these users.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move to that last item on your list.
And there's one more that I'll talk about, but the next one is Facebook Insights. So I feel like when people target lookalikes, they just target the whole lookalike. Lookalike 10%, which is great, but what if you just targeted specific segments inside of that lookalike 10%? So you look into your Facebook Insights, you see that your best conversions are people between 40 and 50 who live in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Well, remember we talked about having our on deck circle of audiences that we're playing around with. But what if you're able to actually target specific segments inside of really big lookalike audiences? So I'm a kind of a big proponent of that as one of my ways that I scale is looking into the insights and then kind of taking that intel and targeting really large segments of users inside of big lookalikes. I think that's been a good key to success, because the bigger audience that I have and the bigger lookalikes, the more I know that there's a lot more meat on the bone of Facebook targeting that's available. So I really am a big proponent of leveraging the Facebook Insights as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, Facebook Insights is it's a significantly underutilized tool.
Yeah.
It can really give you a lot of great, kind of market research and planning information when you're doing campaigns. I remember saving a ton of money, potentially, because I was running a campaign, or I was asked to run a campaign for someone I was working for, and they were just we want to target people in this specific sector, and they had an app for iPhone, but they didn't have an app for Android. And one of the first things I did is I went and added as many interests that were relevant to this audience as possible to give me a good picture. And I wanted to see how many of these people had Android devices versus iOS devices, which is one of the things you can look at in Facebook Insights. And we found that over 80% of the people in this audience were Android users versus iOS. And I said, we shouldn't run this campaign because we're going to have a limited audience. This is not the best target to go after. We should go after somebody, we should go after another group if we have only an iOS app. So definitely check out Facebook Insights. So Steve, I think you mentioned you have a bonus item here, number 5.
Well, one thing before we go, number
Sure.
5, definitive exclusions, as I call it. If you could come up with definitive exclusions that these specific users don't ever want to buy my product, those are the best things. That's the best intel on Facebook, because then you could take all those definitive exclusions outside of all your audiences. So, for instance, if you're able to see that nobody on Android devices have ever purchased my product, or no one on Audience Network has ever purchased my product, you should not be targeting that audience. You should, and now your ads are going to be served to people who are most relevant to purchase your product. So I always say continually look for the definitive exclusions, the definitive groups or segments of people who aren't interested in my product. And last but not least, I think people overall, and I say this a lot, people overall are sometimes can be way too conversion focused. I like to, we have this thing called the top of funnel methodology, the mid funnel and the bottom of funnel. Real quick, top of funnel, I never heard of you, and I don't know about your product. I've never seen your ads. Mid funnel, I've seen your ads. Maybe I never clicked on an ad, but I've seen you, or I've clicked on an ad and I haven't bought. Then bottom of funnel is all your highest intent users. I put in my email address, or I bought in the past. With that said, I think that the top of funnel is where the most innovation, the best marketers kind of are the people that are best at bringing people in at the top of the funnel, and pushing them through their funnel to the bottom where they're making a purchase.
Yeah.
And I think that people top of funnel, like a lot of Facebook marketers that I talk to, they're very conversion focused top of funnel. And I think that's actually a detriment because of the way Facebook's algorithm works. Facebook's algorithm, if you remember, it targets people inside of audiences that they think, aka Facebook thinks, are most likely to do the conversion objective that you set. So with that said, Facebook is charging you a super high CPM, $17, $18, $19 plus, because they're taking their intelligence to target the people inside of a large audience who they think are going to most likely to do that specific product. So your reach is going down, and Facebook is targeting people most likely to do an action. Well, your goal top of funnel is to bring as many people in. Might not be to purchase now, but to bring as many people in as possible. So I like to change up the conversion objectives top of funnel, at different budgets, and really, I'm going to, optimize for reach. I'm going to optimize for different conversion objectives, non-conversion focus when I have a winner ad. Because now I'm going to be bringing so many new users into my funnel, and then they're going to be getting hit with, the correct ad down the funnel, and that's going to increase my remarketing buckets. That's going to allow me to get higher conversion rates down funnel. So I stress that it's very important to really be good at the top of the funnel and to continuously optimize your conversion objectives at the top of the funnel, because you're going to be leaving cash on the table if you just focus 100% on conversions.
Completely agree. Well, this has been a little primer into how to start scaling your Facebook ad campaigns. There's more that goes into it when we're doing more podcast episodes about it. But this is one of those initial episodes that we wanted to launch, covering the exact purpose of the Spend 10K a Day podcast, which is getting up to the point where you can start spending $10,000 a day.
We're going to be having a lot more intel coming just on scaling. I feel like that's one of the hottest topics in Facebook ads, and everybody has their own little strategies that everyone uses to scale. And I don't think there's one specific strategy that I use. I think my scaling strategies are always continuously evolving with the platform, because the auction changes every single day. What's constant tomorrow is going to change tomorrow.
Definitely.
What's constant yesterday, should I say, is going to change tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, this has been another episode of the podcast. We are looking forward to seeing you next time. We're going to be talking a little bit about compliance on Facebook, how to make sure that your ads aren't getting nixed, your account isn't in jeopardy, things like that. So we will see you next time.